your description of, what happened, it's pretty telling that she
Oh, you
knew.
mean 2 days ago? Yeah, I mean, because I'm always waiting, and I'm like, I asked you to wait 10 minutes. Great. You should have been sitting there ready to go. But now it's 10:25 and I'm still waiting for you. My voice is fried. I'm still pissed off with what happened with Chris. And I felt like I don't want to be projecting onto her if it's not her. And so I was just like, screw it. And I said, screw it. And I went and beat up Ted, took a bath. And then I realized, oh, well, that's why I'm angry. There's another part that's surfacing.
Oh,
Oh, and back to that. Before I got in the tub, I realized I could feel my throat and I can still feel it. There is physical soreness right here, like right here. And I'm like, at first I thought, well, I guess that's just from extending my vocal cords too much. But then I realized last night, yesterday, sometime in between the tub and right now that no, that's a physical memory of something.
the body memory.
I'm like, is that me being choked? Is that from when I did that? And I'm like, the parts are going, no. And I'm like, well, is it from this or that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, what's it from? And I got the picture this morning. So I sketched it out. As I'm sketching it,
Can you raise it a little bit?
yeah. As I'm sketching it, my sister Angie calls. I don't know if you can
Oh
see.
God.
So we're in the basement of our house. And you know how in the basement you have those like maybe 4 or 5 inch round poles, I think, where the toilet water comes down through the house.
Yep.
And Dad has this little workshop there, and there's a curtain that separates his workshop from the rest of the basement. Well, for some reason, he's got me tied up. I can slide up and down if I want. I could stand or sit, but I had been there for a long time, and so I was sitting. And Angie and Mary came down and started playing patty cake. Why that game, I don't know. But, Dad's there and he's hollering, pipe down, you guys.
On the other side of the curtain?
Yeah. So they have no idea. I'm sitting there being with my hands tied behind my back
Yeah.
and my neck tied to the pole. But I remember getting tired and my head dropping, and that's when the rope would wake me up. Because that was what I first remembered, and I thought, was that something that went on with Wolf? This is some sort of training that Wolf got to keep her awake. And Wolf's like, well, yes. And then another part's going, no. So I think Wolf had some kind of training outside in the forest where she was forced to stay awake. If she nodded off, somehow she was made to come awake. But this, I think, was some sort of punishment that Dad was putting me through. And ironically, and this is what blows my mind every time I have a memory or thought about something. It says, riding my bike today, I watched yet a different ex-Satanist give his, he's being interviewed by some I've never seen this guy before ever. There's a man in South Africa talking about the South African Satanist church and how he was like a PR guy for them, to have good PR. Anyway, he was talking about how some Satanists were tortured. And this is one of the ways that they were tortured. He said if they did something where they betrayed the church in some way, they were tortured to not do it again. And he said, I forget what the one, he listed out two different kinds of torture. But he says, or we'll tie him up uh, and tie him up to a pole and make him sit there for 2 or 3 hours. And when he said that, I went, oh, that's what I just sketched. Holy crap. So I think Dad was trying to teach me something or discipline me or do something. I don't know. But I was supposed to stay quiet. obviously. And I kept wondering, well, where's mom? And then I was like, oh, she was out shopping. So she was gone 2 or 3 hours. So I think he took that opportunity to do his little torture session. And Angie and Mary were just doing their thing. So, and it was so funny because Angie called me just as I was finishing the
Wow.
sketch
Okay.
this morning.
Okay.
It was right before I got on my bike. And she's talking about how nervous and scared she is about Ray, this new guy. And so we talked for like 20 minutes, which does never happens on a weekday ever, because she always has to go to work and get to work and she's busy and she's got this tight schedule. Blah. But today she was perfectly happy talking. And I said, well, I said, obviously you're scared to death. I said, this might be the one, this might be the guy,
Mhm.
and she's like, well, I'm not ready to have sex with him yet. I said, then don't. She said, yeah, but he's got this trip plan and it's really romantic and he wants to sit in the tub together and have bath salts. And she just sounds really neat. I said, I know, but if you're not ready, you're not ready. I said, I said, why don't you call and ask him if he could push it another month? It's because I know if I were you and if I were in that position, I would feel obligated to have sex with him. And then after that, I would have an attitude because I felt obligated and I did it.
Good.
I
There you
said, so you're gonna have that underlying crap there, and you don't want that. I said, so call him and ask, just say, look, Ray, I'm nervous. I don't know why. Or if you do know, tell him. I said, so can you push it a month? I said, I'm sure he can rearrange to push it. Yeah, but he's doing something with his daughters at the end of that month. I said, so ask him to push it 6 weeks. Ask him to push it 8 weeks.
Good.
I said, if he really cares for you,
There you go. Good for
he'll
you.
do anything.
It's a good test.
And I said that too. And I said, so if he starts getting attitude,
There
blah,
you
blah,
go.
blah. And I was just kind of addressing the different little parts that I thought, well, if that was me, how would I want to talk to those parts? And so I just kind of talked to her that way. And she's like, okay, that sounds good. I said, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you feel trapped and you
Oh,
don't want it surrounding sex. And you don't want it connected with someone that you really care about. And here's something I was really proud of her for. She told me, she said, well, Ray, she said, if we have sex for a woman, oxytocin gets released and that's a bonding hormone. She said, so once we have sex, I'm really going to be bonded to you. So that's why I'm putting it off. It's not a contradiction, right? Because you want to be bonded, but and so she kept framing it as, well, I'm afraid that he's gonna leave me, I'm afraid he's gonna hurt me, and blah blah blah. And as we were talking, I realized, I said, Angie, is it possible that you don't trust yourself? I said, is it possible that you don't trust your judgment when it comes to men? I said, because the past 2 or 3 guys, you thought they were it, and they wound up screwing you over. And so now you don't trust yourself. I said, so how about if you start talking to God? I said, you do pray once a day or so, talk to God, right? She's like, oh, yeah. I said, well, then why don't you ask him to send you a sign that Ray will say or do something that lets you know that you're safe? I said, ask God to send you a sign, to have him say or do something that you will know absolutely that you can trust yourself. I said, and you'll know that that is your God-given mate, not the guy that you picked because he ticks the boxes off, but because God wants him to be with you. She goes, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. So I felt good that I could help her, and she felt good. I felt like we had a real conversation and not like this superficial nonsense about decorating or whatever. So felt like we actually bonded a little bit. And the whole while I'm staring at my sketch, going, I should be
mhm.
pissed off at her because I'm there, I am being tortured, and she gets to play with Mary, but I'm going, okay, I get that one part. I don't know what her name is. I said, but you do realize that Dad made this situation. Angie and Mary didn't make it. They're not the problem. Dad was the problem. The other part's going, yeah, I know, but, and I'm going, so you gotta, you can't hate Angie and Mary. I know, but I want to hate them. So I'm having a part conversation while I'm having a conversation with her parts, staring at.
Okay, and that's, so what'll be helpful, just came to mind. When you're, what are you calling the punching guy? What are you?
Oh, Ted.
Okay, that's right.
Ted
Ted
Talks.
Talk.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Um,
I love that.
right. So let that part, so you don't have a sense of which part is angry at Angie? Not that you have to, but if you, is it a new part?
No, no, no. It's not a part that's angry well,
Well, there is a part.
I guess
Which,
there is a part. Yeah. I
do
never
you know
really.
which part?
I think probably the one where she is being raped and she's smiling and happy about it and saying, you
There you
see,
go.
this is what you're supposed to do. This is how you're supposed to live and be. And, you know, follow me. I'm your guide,
So which part is angry at her? Do you have a sense?
Um, no, actually. I know it's what 2 years. I know there's an adult part of me that's pissed off at her.
Yeah.
Um, the child parts are more followed her lead, which was misguided, but no, I don't know. I guess I'll just have to get that sorted.
Yeah. And
Now that
take,
you've asked, they'll pop their head up, I'm sure.
because here's, one of the key principles is, as far as healing, resolving the stuff, is first of all, just getting it out. You're doing a beautiful job in doing that. Um, so it might be, so what I recommend is this, let that part be angry with her. It's going to come out.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting as the words come out. The truth is coming, so it's separating knapsacks. The truth is coming out, and it has a way of clarifying. So it's almost like there's that morphing in the midst of the venting session where truth will enter in.
Yeah, yeah, I've
So to
experienced.
get it out, it's okay. Let that part be angry with her, and then it'll shift to what your dad did, and then it'll naturally then transition.
Dissipate, yeah.
There you go. So it's one of those things you can't intellectualize away your anger. You just have to start getting it out. But as it starts to flow,
Yeah,
it
it'll
has a
move.
way of
Yeah.
then sinking in, and therefore now right and left brain have connected. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, I know when I was about, what was it, maybe 42, I had just met Chris. We were together a few years, and Mary was going to go with Grant and Celine, her children, to Arizona and spend time with Angie. And I thought, oh, I haven't seen any of them in 10 years. I could just drive over and we could all see each other. I thought it was just the greatest idea since sliced bread, right? And so I'm calling and talking to Angie about this, and she is just like, no, no, that's just too much. I can't handle that. And I was really hurt and I got really angry. And I just, what did I wrote a letter and I just let her have it. I was like, fuck you. We haven't seen each other for 15 years and blah, blah, blah. And finally we have this opportunity and you just brush me off like I'm a piece of shit or what I guess like kind of the same way that Melissa does.
I'm just turning on the air conditioner. I'm getting all into this. I notice I'm getting
Oh
warm.
no, that's fine.
Okay,
So
there we go. There we go.
um it was just too much for her to deal with and cope with her. She called me back and she was handling me, and that pissed me off even more. I'm like, can't we just interact? I'm like, what's the big deal? we're family, you know. I'm like, I thought that, you know, okay, with Mary and her two children, then there's Angie, and there would be me and Chris and maybe Joe. Yeah, that's 7 people. That's a lot of people. But, you know, when you're a family and you're
Right.
that close and you're elbow to elbow, I find it more bonding than when it's just two of you. You know what I mean? You know, you're two or three of you in the brushing your teeth together,
Mhm.
or three, you know, three women in the kitchen trying to cook. I find it more memorable and more bonding. Do you know what I'm saying? Than if there's just this simple, easy space thing. It seems more superficial to me. And I'm trying to explain this to her, and she's like, "Ah, I can't handle it." And so we didn't talk for 10 years after that because I felt so rejected by her. And, you know, Mary and Grant and Celine went there, and they, you know, she took the dog and they had a time. And, you know, I remember Mary called telling me how awful it was and blah, blah, blah. And
Oh gosh.
I'm like, wow, you know, great. But yeah, we didn't talk for 10 years. And then it was, I think, 2 years before mom's heart problem, or maybe 3 years. Yeah, 3 years, because then, anyway, as mom and I would talk over the phone, she would tell me that she talked to Angie. And so I would try to get, mom was a middleman to kind of get us to make up. And we did eventually. Angie called me and we agreed to disagree and just move forward from there. But to this day, she every once in a while will still stick a pin in me. What a nice analogy, right? Stick a pin in me. She'll poke me with, well, you remember when you know, wrote that nasty letter? Because
Oh,
at the time, Facebook was out. They were all on Facebook, and Chris and I did not do that, never did it. And I thought that all of this was happening on Facebook, so our whole family knew what was going on and that I was being badmouthed. And I thought, well, F you, I'm going to Facebook you the old-fashioned way. So this letter that I sent her, basically ripping her a new asshole and telling her what a bitch she is, I sent to my mom, to Mary, to Angie, my aunt, and my cousin. So I thought, if you're going to badmouth me on Facebook, then I'm going to badmouth you on paper. So she'll still throw that out there from time to time. And I just look at her and I'm like, you know, I I have invested probably 100 hours of work in her shop for free just to, well, number one, like I told you, to help make her more successful, that she could help take care of mom better. But also, I was trying to make amends because that hurt her. And I thought, well, I get to organize, so I enjoy that. And mom gets help, and I can kind of make amends. But still, you know, anyway. So now I've lost my train of thought. But
no, that's
yeah,
good.
so
I mean,
she's
oh,
still.
well, I know about the venting and it coming out. Uh,
Yeah, so I think that's where the part was really born, was right then.
okay. So, you know, just see,
Maybe it's
allow that part. It'll be interesting then if you get a name. So allow that part, right? Just to start going during the venting process. And, you know, the like in this particular, as you've just described that drawing, okay, you're venting about it. So letting the part vent, because it is very interesting how inside of us that shift will take place. So it could be something along the lines, and maybe you can help that part, which is, you know, angry, Angie, how could you, how dare you? Why didn't you see? Why didn't you? Here it is. Why didn't you see what dad was doing? Why didn't you save me? Don't you see what dad is doing? And now
Right, yeah, yeah,
right? All of a sudden, when it's like, don't you see what dad is? And now it's like, and you'll start to, and dad, he always was doing this. Dad was, and it's now shifting.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
interesting phenomenon when that
And
truth.
I know that like in that moment as I'm tied up there and I know my sisters are 20 feet behind me playing and there's just a curtain, it's not a wall, that oh no, I just lost it. Oh, that I knew that it was irrelevant for me to even hope for
Yeah.
help from them because Angie was a perp supporter. You know, she was the one that made us do the Hail Ra, Hail Satan dance. She was the one that led us in that dance in the basement. She was
Wow.
the one that was like, I'm being raped, but look how fantastic it is. You know, so I knew by the time that this incident happened that to ask for help or to even attempt to make a noise would be irrelevant, that it wouldn't matter, that she would not help me, and Mary wouldn't either. That's just how they were already conditioned to be and to behave, and that for
And
me
when,
to appeal to them would be pointless. That I guess I felt helpless and hopeless.
see that something tells me that's okay. Knowing how your dad was from what you've described, then all this stuff.
Oh my God, yeah.
So very little is left to accident or to happenstance.
You mean for him or for
Yeah,
these situations? Yeah, yeah, it's
with
all
him,
very planned out. It's
it's
all
very planned out.
calculated.
So we've got a perpetrator, a heinous perpetrator, in a basement with his daughter, and just a curtain.
Yeah,
And
that's all it was. Like I think it was like a like army green color, you know.
so we've got a guy. Bottom line, we have a guy that is doing something that would get him in prison,
Yeah, I
and
didn't even think
allows
of
the daughter, the other sisters, allows the other two daughters in the same
it. Be
room,
like complicit with him, like that
just behind a curtain.
having that secret.
So there's a method to this, and he's got you. I mean, I could say trying to think evil here. That's the wrong one. Where it's like,
It is
can he
evil.
create can he create a scenario? So it's like a test, plus he's traumatizing you. So here are the girls just on the other side of the curtain. And what girls, what normal girl, meaning it's like we know dad and sister are there. Why aren't they peeking around the curtain?
Because they know better.
Okay.
Oh, they
So
know better. Yeah, you
so
don't
it
come
can
into
be,
dad's area. Yeah.
so he's permitting them to be in close proximity,
Yeah, it's like he's making them complicit with him.
right? He didn't say, girls, I'm going down to the basement with your sister. I don't want you to come here. Get yourself situated. Here's a
No,
TV
no, no,
program.
no, no,
He
no. I think
allows
he
that.
made them, I think he brought all of us down there together and separated me out and said, you two stay over here and you can play over there
Okay,
and
so they
don't
had to
bother
be,
us.
this is interesting. So they had to be hearing, I mean, what does a kid do? Okay, you're in a room, we got a curtain, something's going on with your sister. You can hear her gagging, or you can hear dad doing something over there. So what do they do with that trauma? They're going to act goofy and
Well, and
start to
you know,
verbalize
you just
louder.
made me realize something because I kept thinking, why would they be playing patty
Well,
cake?
they've got to drown it out.
They're like of an age where that's like something you do when you're 5 and 6. And I
They
think
got to
they're
do,
older.
they're
So I
reverting,
think that they're trying to cope and
knowing that just on the other side of the curtain,
something bad's happening and
and
we're
they
not
could
gonna
probably hear
look.
you gasping.
Oh,
They
right. And
can't
I
do a
was
darn
crying.
thing.
I was crying. I don't know if I was making noise, but I was crying. I put tears on the picture.
And there may be, I don't know, it could be, right, these perpetrators, your dad,
They're
golly.
just so sick. I know. It's
But you
disgusting.
wonder if there was something else he was doing as well. Because when did he ever just stop doing, you never know. But if there's anything else, it may
But
come
yeah,
up.
I mean, this was the
What else is he
afternoon time.
doing to you?
Oh, in that 2 or 3 hour time
Oh
period.
gosh, 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, when mom went shopping. Yeah, it was like all orchestrated. It was like a weekend, and
So you just wonder.
obviously we didn't go to training camp that weekend, so we were at home. And I also remembered that mom, we only had one car, and dad denied mom having the car during the week so that she would have to go shopping on the weekend and be gone, right? And so he could do little whatever he's going to do while she goes in shopping. Now, she didn't like, I know I can go shopping and take 2 or 3 hours, but I might stop at 4 or 5 places. My mom didn't do that. She didn't have all sorts of money. She may have just gone to the grocery store and come back. And I'm thinking, well, that's tops 45 minutes. So he must have given her errands to run as
Mhm.
well to eat up more time. And I don't know what that would have been. It's not like we did dry cleaning or anything like
I
that.
wonder
Maybe
when,
he had her running around looking for something in particular that he knew you couldn't find. Well, Karen, go to X and Y and Z and
there you go.
whatever, and then
Okay,
do your groceries last,
so either he anticipates a certain time frame, so he,
Yeah.
as soon as she pulls out kind of thing, and therefore he's got a buffer, or I wonder if he ever had a tracking device on the vehicle
I don't know.
back
This would be
then.
the early 70s. Is that
Yeah. Okay.
even?
So he probably gave himself enough of a buffer, but then
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
had your mom so trained
Yeah.
uh,
I mean,
that she didn't see what she was seeing.
well, and I remember from time to time she would say, Ken, I need to go take care of something. Let me drive you to work and pick you up because I need the car. And he would just lose it. No, no. Because there's only certain things you can do Monday through Friday, and she would just have to argue with him about it to be able to get stuff done sometimes. And yeah, I mean, he just was totally in control of her time and energy. And I think sometimes he said, well, have Mary Ann take you or whatever, or something like that. And she would be like, well, I don't need to always be asking Mary Ann. We have a car. Why can't I take you to work and pick you up? What's the big deal? And he would just have fits and have fits, and she would just cave and give up,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? Which, yeah, but yeah, I do. When mom passed away, my sister Mary, as you're talking about anger towards Anja, I'm realizing I have anger towards Mary too. And it really expressed itself when mom passed away because, I'm driving to Arizona to go help Angie, and I'm there for 2 weeks, and Mary refused to come, just refused. She could have got on a plane. Her work could have given her 2 or 3 days off. She could have come. We could have bonded. We could have helped each other and moved on with life and had that bonding moment. She refused.
And she's in Florida.
Yeah, yeah. And but she wanted us to do everything to accommodate her. Like, for example, she wanted to help, but the way to help was to take photographs of all of her financial records and all of her credit cards and then send it to me, and I'll make all the phone calls and I can help that way. And I'm like, why? I'm here. I'll do it myself. Angie's got to go to work, or Angie went to work, believe it or not. Um, I think she took 2 or 3 days off, but then went back to work, and I handled most of this stuff. But I'm like, it's not, I said, Mary, it's not about that. It's about the three of us need to be together in this moment, not 2 months from now in a strange church that you're going to have a memorial in, but here and now in this place where her things are, where we can touch them and feel them and smell them and hold each other and hug each other. That's what we need. And she refused. And I
Yeah.
just got furious with her, angry that she could just reject us and abandon us like
He
that.
wasn't going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So she's got walls up.
Oh, yeah, I guess whatever. But we wound up, and then, Angie and I went to the funeral home and made the arrangements for the cremation, and we bought these little orb things, and the orbs would light up and it would have mom's ashes in it. The funeral director kind of took advantage of us in our grief and sold us these things. And Mary was pissed off that we didn't get one for her. And I said, well, that's what happens when you're not here. I said, call the funeral home, figure out what they have for sale, and buy it. I said, what the fuck's the problem? But no, it had to be how awful we were because we didn't think of her and we didn't buy this thing for her. And then she's nitpicking. I said, let's split the costs. I said, I paid for it with my credit card, because Chris makes good money. And, Angie's like, well, I'll pay you back when we get when I get, mom's insurance money. And I was like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. But Mary, oh my God, she took the bill from the cremation place, had them send her a copy of it, and she nitpicked every line item. Every line item. And is saying, no, I'm not going to pay. I'll pay this or that or this or that. And then she wanted all mom's jewelry. And, mom had bought Angie and I a pair of earrings. And I didn't remember this until 2 months after we buried her, that mom had called me. And so I just want you to know, I want Mary to have all the jewelry because I want her to pass it down to Celine, her granddaughter. But I've bought you and Angie a pair of earrings that are exactly the same. And when we ran into them, I knew they were for me and Angie, but I couldn't remember because I was in so much grief. And so we took them. I found the receipts. They were $500 each. It's like, holy crap. But she just was awful through the whole thing. And I was furious with her. And she had cut me off on the phone like 3 years earlier, just blocked me. And I was pissed off about being rejected and abandoned by her then. And now mom's dead and you're going to do it. And you know how I talked to her? I had mom's phone because I bought mom her phone. So I thought, well, it's mine. I bought it. I pay for her service. Screw it. So that's how I communicated with Mary, was through mom's phone.
That's good. That's good.
And we had, oh my God, just terrible, terrible fights through text. And finally we blocked each other, and I haven't spoken to her since. I have sent her, I think at Christmas time, a Merry Christmas. I think she received it, but just ignored me. And Angie just sent her a Happy Mother's Day, and she received it, but ignored it. So yeah, there's Mary anger there too. So I'm sure that's from when we were children. But yeah, they would get angry with me because I pushed back and got in trouble, as to where they didn't. They just did it. Mary was more interested. She liked the perp idea. She liked being in the power position. I remember her and Angie competed their whole lives. I was more of the peacemaker between them, always trying to get them to make up as children. But Angie, because she was the oldest, she was placed in a position of leadership. She's supposed to teach everyone else what to do. And Mary was still in a position of following and listen to Angie and listen to this. Well, Mary didn't want, she wanted to be in Angie's power position. And so they would constantly butt heads. And I was always trying to make everything okay. And so that's still the problem that Angie and Mary have today, is they butt heads. And Mary is more interested in having a power position still. And I think that's why she married Mark, because Mark's family had money and position and prestige, if you want to call it that. Mark's father was a liaison between the city of Milwaukee and the union. And the union is mafia. Right. So Mark's father's a liaison between the mob and the government. and he's cheating on his wife, and his wife stays because they're making good money. They've got $1 million house in the forest of Wisconsin. So Mary meets Mark and sees, ooh, we've got a power position here, and I can be his wife and have that life. And she did. And I remember she used to treat mom like shit because mom came from a poor family, a life of want. Well,
Yeah.
not really want, but she didn't, mom would sit down at the table that Mary would make to impress Mark's family. Their name, his parents' name were Bev and Henry. And, they would have the, 8 pieces of silverware and the 3 glasses, the proper rich person table setting. And mom said, my God, I would sit down to have a Christmas dinner with them. I didn't know what to do. And Mary would be embarrassed and humiliated because mom didn't have on a $1,000 dress or, $2,000 worth of jewelry. And so Mary would just treat mom like shit and brush her to the side and just kowtow and, basically kneel to the altar of the god of money, basically. And so when Mark cheated on her, she could have chosen to stay and just be a wife who's cheated on, but she didn't. She left. I'll give her credit for that. She had enough dignity. But to this day, she's bitter and angry because she doesn't have the second house in Arizona that she always planned to have. Oh, and that's another thing Mary's pissed off about. When Mary was a teenager, she went to Arizona and fell in love with it, always wanted to live there. But she was in Milwaukee, she met Mark, married Mark, and they made an agreement. He said, well, okay, we'll move to Arizona once the kids are, say, around 11 or 12, maybe 13ish. So they have time to get to know my parents and know the grandparents, and then we can move. Well, when that time rolled around, Mark said, fuck you, we're staying here.
Yeah.
So he lied to her, and egged her and dragged her along for all those years. And she was furious about it. But, what is she going to do? So finally, he cheats, she divorced him. She said, go back to school, go back to work. Celine goes to school in Florida and Mary follows her so that Celine doesn't have out-of-state tuition, right? So Mary's a resident, that's her mother. So that's why she moved there, was for Celine. But in the meantime, before even the divorce happened, Angie moved to Arizona. Like 15 years, like maybe 5 years prior to her divorce and all that. So Mary was furious that Angie was in Phoenix and she wasn't, right? And why Angie went to Phoenix, who knows? She knew her whole life, that was Mary's dream spot. But so Angie went there, right? Almost like a poke in the eye, And so now Mary's in Florida and Angie got wind from some kind of a mutual friend that Mary is going to move to Phoenix right about now on the down low without telling Angie. But so there's this constant competition. And it's just ridiculous. I'm like, Phoenix isn't big enough for both of you to live there. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah,
That does matter. Because
yeah.
I knew the weather, I could tell it's like always warm there, so no wonder. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's the desert.
yeah,
It's windy and it's hot all the time.
yeah, there you go. Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I just thought it was funny that Angie wound up where Mary always wanted to be, and Mary never got to get there.
Yeah.
So they just have this competition that's crazy. And I think because they got spared, I think they got spared a lot while I did not, because at some point Dad favored me. I think when we went to that training camp and I got tested, I tested better than they did.
See that
And they were shuffled off. And I think, that affected their ego. and they probably have survivor's guilt, and they've probably got all sorts of shit going on when it comes to me. But for me, I've only ever just wanted the three of us to be family, to love each other and to get along. And, and they were there for me from time to time, like the leech part when we were at Three Lakes. I would get abused and they'd be up in the bedroom. They couldn't sleep because they could hear me hollering, through the windows, which Dad couldn't because he was on the first floor with the radio going with, Whit's daughters giving him blowjobs. So it's noisy down there, but they're upstairs in the quiet, supposedly going to bed with the window open because it's the summer, and they could hear me hollering from 2 or 3 house lengths away, and then I would come back, and I remember I'd sit in bed and I'd cry, and they would both come over, and I remember they'd go on either side of me and they'd wrap their arms around me and they would rock me. So I know they love me, and I know they felt sorry, and I know they had survivor's guilt, but I also know that they were trained to be selfish and egocentric and just be focused on their own selves and what they wanted. And Mary always wanted the power position. And I think that's why she, it blows my mind, but she's a Catholic. And it didn't really hit me until I was in the Catholic church where Mary arranged for Mom's funeral service that look at the wealth that just drips off the walls of those buildings.
I'm telling you.
Just the wealth. And I thought, well, of course Mary would be drawn to this. This is a power position. This is appearances. This is ego. This is exactly what Mary was taught to be. I mean, Angie has a similar bent, except hers is making the money for herself, not getting it from somebody else. She owns her own business and she's proud to do what she does. Her thing is Dad ran his own business and now I run my own business. And isn't that great? I'm taking after Dad. Like, if you only knew, like, he died and she got some, how they fold up a flag into the triangle and put it in like a frame, with a glass with a wooden frame. Well, she got one for him. And I thought, oh, I guess so. I guess he was in the military, wasn't he? But she has that behind her desk at work in her shop. And I'm like, if you only knew, Angie, you would be so disgusted to even have that in your presence. I just like, I'm so glad I remembered when I was in my 20s that Dad was a bad guy. I just didn't realize the depth and level to which he was a bad guy. That's what's happening now, is the level and the depth of depravity. And your, chart on the perpetrators just makes it more real. I totally get it now. The left to right, the pornography, the conscience, all of it. I get it. I mean, I used to cut my dad a lot of slack for a lot of years thinking, oh, well, hurt people. And he was just acting out because he was abused himself. Well, no, I get now that
Is that right? So the chart that I put together?
Oh yeah, it's huge help, because you can't look at it and say to yourself,
that was the goal. That's why I put it together. So that
yeah, you can't go through those shows that you do and anymore fool yourself into thinking, oh, well, my dad wasn't that bad. You can't go there anymore. It's just, no, if he could cut up body parts and drink blood and do this level of depravity, he's not that nice guy from section 2. He's in section 10, and there's no question. And you really start to understand And the thing I'm trying to get through to Chris is that conscience thing. You know, how it starts off where you just brush it off and you ignore it, and then you become callous to it, and then you suppress it, and then you actively rebel against. I mean, I forget how you word it, but it's just that. And I'm trying to explain it to him in terms of his coworkers. I said, because you need to, I said, you really need to understand the place that they're at on this chart. I said, you should watch it just for this, and not to know about sexual abuse or any of that, but so that you understand you're not going to change this person. You're not going to lead him into being a better guy. You need to know who you're dealing with, and if they're behaving in this way, you're not gonna inspire them to be a Boy Scout. It just ain't gonna happen. But he just won't spend the time because I get he needs to unwind from work and whatever, but it's always got to be with a beer, and then by 8 or 9 o'clock, it's just too late, and his brain won't accept anything, and it's just. I'm like, if you stayed sober and you got sober long enough, you'd realize this bullshit you watch on YouTube is boring. Your intellect is so far above this. And that if you started watching things that educated you, oh my God, you're going to really start to enjoy your mind. You know what I mean?
And that well put. He can't enjoy his mind.
He can't. He
He's just
can't.
running. He's running and running and running.
He is. He really
Numbing,
is.
right? That's really he's running by numbing, mood altering.
Yeah, yeah.
He cannot have downtime,
Yeah, well, but the downtime has to be with beer.
numbing out. That's right. But
Yeah,
he
numbing
couldn't.
out. But
He
he
wouldn't
can't
in silence.
do it sober,
Right.
because I'm like, I envy Melissa in this way, and I kind of envy Susan in this way, that they have husbands that were their intellectual equals. I mean, I don't know anything about Susan, but she helps you with your work. So she
Absolutely.
has to have an intellectual understanding and an emotional.
Well, you two remind me a lot of each other.
Oh, really?
You
Spiritual
guys have a very
connection.
high IQ. No, that's yeah.
And I envy, and Chris has a super high IQ. I envy that Melissa and Alan got to enjoy each other intellectually and emotionally and spiritually, as well as physically. You know what I mean? And I'd like to assume that you and Susan are the same way. But I don't get to have that with Chris. And his IQ is 1 point higher than mine. So I know that if he just gave himself the chance,
That's it.
he could really excel intellectually, and he wouldn't be so. I think a lot of his frustration is that he's swimming in stupidity. He's surrounded by and swimming in stupidity because like, his coworkers, they act like 9-year-olds. I'm like, and he's like, he just gets so frustrated and irritated. And I'm like, you're not going to inspire them to be responsible adults. Only they can get there. Only they can choose to do it. I said, yeah. I said, if they are keep fucking up all the time, the only thing you can do is discipline them. If you discipline them 3 times and they get fired, then that's because they choose to get fired. But he won't get there. He resists disciplining them. He feels bad disciplining. He's the same with his children. Well, at least with, Joe, who I, interacted with him with. And I'm like, you've got to write them up. You've got to smack them on the hand. I said, I know that's what changed me. If I did bad shit at work and I got written up, I didn't do it again because I knew I was going to lose my job. And when I was a boss, I mean, I was a boss of, Best Buy has like 7,200 people. And I would have to write up any one of them at any time. And after a certain point, you don't feel guilty about it. You don't feel bad because you've explained it to them. You've told them about it. You've warned them. You're still doing it again. Well, I'm going to record it now, and this is real. And if you do it again, now you're on the edge of losing your job. And if you do it again, bye. And I've had to fire probably I don't know, 15 or 20 people in my career. And I just learned that I'm not going to feel bad about this because they were warned, they were taught, they were educated, they were trained. This is the choice they make. But Chris won't. I think he did his first write-up on someone just a few weeks ago. And he's been a boss for a few years. And he gets pissed off because I say, you've got to write them up. And he'll keep records of all their fuck ups. And the file gets real fat. But he does nothing with it except be mad about it. And I'm like, you've got to, I said, yes, you'll be the bad dad. And they're going to be pissed off because dad spanked them. I said, but dad's got to be dad. Only the write-up is the only thing that will make them change. And it's because they're going to lose their means of supporting their family. And if they don't care enough to support their family, then it's not your responsibility to save them. They need that slap in the face. They need that hard life lesson. And I'm not saying corporate America is the best thing anyway, but if you're not going to do your job, fine, go away. I don't need to be your babysitter. And that's what Chris does. He takes on their knapsacks. I mean, a few weeks
Then
ago,
he comes home and dumps it on you. So
yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago, he finally gave a bunch of knapsacks back and he's finally starting to put boundaries down. And like they have these things they have to do, get done by the end of the month. Well, they're always late and he gets in trouble and he gets on these lists. And so finally he laid down the law and says, you know what? I want all this due by the 15th. And everybody put up a fit. I said, well, that's just the children having a tantrum. I said, and so I guess everybody got theirs in except two. It's the 17th. So now he's having a fit because those two aren't done. I said, good. I said, let dad stomp his foot because that's what needs to happen. So he's just interesting. And he gets mad because I know more than he does in certain areas. And I'm like, well, it's not good. It's like he'll say, quit shoving it in my face. And I'm not shoving it in your face. I'm just telling you what will help you. And he sees it as me, I don't know, lording over him or something. Maybe being his mother, I don't know. But he won't, he's just not, we're not in the same place intellectually. And we could be, but he just isn't.
well, the special ops, right? The key to special ops is you have to be self-reliant and self-sufficient,
That's
right?
exactly it. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so he has to,
He's got to be on his own, do it himself.
right? But in order for him to ever get along, he has to value the input.
And sometimes he does. He'll come back 6 months or a year later and say, well, I did X, Y, and Z, but he'll pretend like it was all his own idea. And I'll think to myself, okay, Diana, you know that you put it out there. You don't need to say anything. Just pat him on the back and say, that's awesome. Because I don't need that ego boost, you know what I mean? But it would just be nice every once in a while for him to say, you know what? Thanks for that advice. I finally tried it and it worked. That'd be great to hear, but he's just too proud. Anyway,
And
but
that's
it's
it.
that military thing. I know, but I feel like saying to him, in order to get to that self-reliant place, someone taught you, didn't they? Right? But he doesn't want to hear that. So,
Well, and
but I mean, God matched us up for a reason. I think it's because my ego doesn't have to be satisfied. I can be pleased without saying that was me. So, I
I
mean,
tell you, there is no way, in my estimation. So he looked through your journal and he saw the chart, right?
yeah, well, I don't think he really understood what he was looking at. When
Oh, that's okay, but he
well,
saw it. He saw it.
yeah, and the day before, that night before we had the argument, I read to him the 5 different parts that he gave me. And
So, okay, as I was scanning, so you actually,
I
and
sat down and I skipped all the others. I said, this is what I want you to see that you did to me. And I read them out, each one. I said, here's the name, it's Bump. Do you remember that day you headbutted me?
wow.
And I
So that
read,
was 2 days ago?
yeah, and he just listened. And I flipped through each one and I got
This
done.
this will be very interesting now. If well, it's just going to be very, you're doing a great job, Diana. Unbelievable. Your tolerance level, right? May
I
still
know.
almost be a little too, but no, you're doing
And
fine.
that
And
comes from my parts, that
right.
tolerance level.
But
Yeah.
it'll be very, because I'm just, as you've described Chris, and as I'm seeing him in his composite parts, but as the total, that it'll be very interesting because for him to know. So it'll be very interesting for you to you maintain. You're doing
Yeah,
absolutely
because
fine. But
I,
it'll be very interesting to know, meaning it was in his face. He has harmed a woman, let alone he harmed his wife.
yeah, yeah.
That's going to be very interesting to watch now over the next days and weeks and months what happens
Well, and
now.
even in those parts, the story that I wrote that went with it, on each one, I think I said, why am I with this man?
Yeah.
Each
So
time
you read that.
I read it to him. And
Oh,
after
and then you told him you're standing over him with a knife.
I did, I
I'm
said, guess
telling
what? Do you remember when you've said over and over that you feel like I'm going to come kill you in your
you.
sleep?
Yeah.
I said, guess what? One of my parts shared with me, that's
Oh
real.
gosh.
And it really happened. And I said, I went and got a knife and stood over you. I said, but you were too fucking drunk to even wake up. And then when you did, I could mind fuck you and get you to go back to sleep and make you think you were dreaming.
That was two
And
days ago?
yeah. And I had gone out and beaten I think yeah, I don't know. We had the argument. I went and beat Ted.
Mhm.
So he's listening to me scream at this thing, right? Which I was basically screaming at Chris.
Of course, of
And then
course.
I come in and I go to my room and my parts go, don't you dare go hide. Go get the thing and read it to him. And so I was like, okay. And I did. So I sat down and I read it. And then I told him about, you know, Frick standing over him with a knife and how we
Did you
might,
say what part, the name of the part?
I think I did. And I said, so I said, he would, from time to time, Chris will ask me, say, you think you got more balls than I do? And he'll grab his balls. And so I grabbed I said, yeah, motherfucker, I've got 5 or 6 big burly men that live in me. And I said, so yeah, I got bigger balls than you. And his mouth just dropped open.
And
And
again,
I
that was two
said,
days ago?
yeah. And I said, so now that I'm conscious of those parts and the skills that they have, I said, you can bet your ass I'm going to access them and use them when I need to. And his eyes got really big. And I went, so quit fucking with me. I was just like, I'm just fucking done. I said, quit drinking. It's always my argument is to quit drinking. And he did for 2 days, but it's probably because he had to get up at 3:30 in the morning and drive.
It's going to be interesting. I think the scales may have dropped from his eyes
Maybe. And
in
then
a
it
whole
was
lot
the
of different
next
ways.
day. Yeah, it was the
Uh,
next day that he asked to read the rest. Well, he started at the beginning.
yeah,
So with Blue and what happened to me when I was 3 weeks old. And I think I happened to glance out there. I think he got maybe a third of the way through it. Maybe more. I don't know. I just remember when dinner was ready, it wasn't there anymore. So I think he absorbed enough and then went and put it back in the office. It's like, it's a lot to digest,
I
even
think
for
this.
me.
Okay, this
But
this is
so he knows that I've been
right.
through
The
a lot of
totality of
shit.
your marriage, Diana. Okay, ready? You've hit the culmination. It's here. Meaning this is the Rubicon has been crossed.
I don't know what that means.
Apparently when was it
That we've come to a crossroads. Yeah.
and you crossed it.
And
Meaning
yeah,
he
and
crossed it,
when
and therefore it'll be very
you
interesting.
can't undo it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that phrase comes from when Caesar came back, the
Is
Rubicon is
Rubicon the name of a river?
yeah.
Oh,
And
because I'm
so it
thinking
was
a
the idea
Rubicon
that,
was a Jeep.
oh yeah, I think that's why they named it that way.
Yeah.
So it's that phrase that, you know what, once that line has been crossed. So
You can't go back. Yeah.
no. So this will be so just, I say that to, not that you need it, but just to affirm and confirm your own intuition and steadfastness that, you know what,
I'm not,
it's
yeah.
it's a new day. It is a new day once you show him all this and the fact that he started reading. So it's just you you
I
carpet
mean, I don't
him.
know. I hadn't planned on doing any of that, but my parts just
It
took
came out.
over. I was so furious. The parts
Yeah.
were like,
Oh,
you're gonna
that
shove this in his face. And that's
yeah.
generally the only way he listens to me.
I know. It's pathetic and sad, but guess what?
I know.
You released the mother of all bombs.
I did. I was like,
Right?
I'm
Yes,
just
you did.
fucking
You
done.
carpet bombed, you napalmed, you strafed, and you came in with them.
I know.
So,
And I'm like, I'm not screwing around anymore. I'm just not. I got a lot of shit to deal with, and now I gotta fucking baby you.
well,
Really?
and you know what? Therefore, what unfolded
I
is
feed my dog.
you don't need his permission anymore, even though he was running his mouth, right? Well, you never asked me. You're going to do what you're going to do. Well, you know what? The fact that you've
Right.
done all this and
Yeah,
you plan on lunch and you're right. You need to do it. So he has time to prepare for you starting to put forth your information and wow.
and here's
Okay.
the thing too, was he knows, the whole Alan Watt thing, that started when I was 42 or something. We met when I was 39. So I knew there was no way he was going to deny me that work. I knew it was important. I knew I needed it for me. And the irony is that Chris is streetwise. He's very street smart. And I was very naive when we met. And he would tell me just how naive and he wouldn't say I was stupid, but just, what, the world is not that sweet, kind place.
Oh.
Right. And I'd be like, oh, come on, it's Disneyland, whatever. And so I ran into him, but discovered Alan Watts, started doing the work, and Alan was able to teach me the very thing that Chris woke me up to. And I was always trying to show him, you and Alan Watt are the same, except Alan Watt can communicate it. You cannot. I mean, you
Well,
could,
Chris is sitting on all his stuff, so he can only go so far.
right. And so I knew, and I think that's why Chris will say you're going to do what you're going to do, because I did it then. And I had to withhold it from him because he was jealous and it's a guy on the internet. And, I knew he was being closed-minded and stupid. And if he truly understood, he would approve. But because he's so stuck in being drunk and stuck in his bullshit, he'll never see. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to hide it from you. And I'm not going to feel ashamed or embarrassed about that. Now, of course, I did a little bit, and I didn't like withholding it from him. And it took, 20 years? I mean, even after Alan died, Chris was still pissed off that I was still finishing the transcripts. He's like, what are you still doing that for? He's dead. I said, because they're not finished yet. I need to get them all done. Chris was still pissed off. And then I became friends with Melissa, explained who she was and all that. And he was pissed off I was still connected to Alan Watt in that way. And I'm like, what is it you think is going to happen here? Like, Alan's dead. And he said something to me once. He says, well, because I was still doing something. I think I was editing a transcript, and he happened to look over my shoulder, and he barked. He says, Alan Watt's not dead because she's Alan Watt. And once she dies, then you're going to be Alan Watt. So he's not dead. And I didn't say anything because I thought you're right. Because Melissa told me, she said, if anything happens to me, I've willed all of this to go to you. And I was like, are you fucking, I was scared when she told me. I was like, that's a big responsibility, but I've accepted it. And so I thought, you're
Good.
right, Chris.
No,
If
that's
he
wonderful.
dies, I'm
Yeah.
Alan Watt. You're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I didn't,
No,
he
and
doesn't
Diana,
know that.
it makes sense. Second Corinthians chapter 1, it's very interesting as Paul's opening that letter. In essence, well, the verses basically say this, that the same grace that God extended to any of us that have gone through difficult things, you've gone through, I mean, I've gone through things, but you guys, you're special ops, right? The
I
stuff,
just can't even, I sometimes, I
I've
still
gone
think,
through
is this
National Guard,
really me?
right? I'm equating it, I may have gone through National Guard level, but you're
No,
what,
yeah,
okay?
don't even compare. It's just,
No, but I'm just
yeah,
the reality. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
so the amount of meaning as you're going through the process, you're going through the healing, it's kind of like this. God doesn't waste pain. He honors that.
I
And,
know, it's like it's there for me to do
and
something.
therefore you will by you doing the hard work, number one, with your own work and your own healing, but then going through this, it's helping you, but you are plotting out, you are charting out. As a matter of fact, oh, there it is. Did you see the episode that Emma put out?
Oh, with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you saw your chart.
Yeah, I did. I was so proud.
Okay.
That's mine.
Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. There we go. I'm a little
Yeah.
slow. I just put it the abbreviated version. I didn't do the include the question and answer because I want to honor. I want to kind of differentiate. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though I guess it's my work, but still, if she hadn't been doing this, I wouldn't have taken the time. It's just the reality. So
Oh, yeah.
it's just I don't know. It's sort of the right thing. It's forcing me to carve it into my schedule where I just I wouldn't have
Well, you
done
know
that.
what? Since that episode, because I was having a hard time with my
And
timeline.
how did you feel I did as far as describing it and making sure you were confidential and
Oh, it
not
was all
making
fine. It was perfect. Yeah, I didn't have any drawback at
but
all.
look at that.
Now, when you got to the part talking about the timeline and charting out the timeline, see, I had taken all of my parts with their emotional, level, whatever you want to call it, and put it in an Excel document. I thought, oh, I can take that and make a graph. Well, I've been screwing around with that for a week because I can't get it to put the right ages in there. And I couldn't get it to put the name of the part at the point. All it will do is graph up and down and
Oh,
put the positive and negative 10.
so you may have to just
So that's when you did your thing on Emma's show. I went, oh, I'll do it that way rather
oh,
than putting it
okay.
on butcher paper. So I did a separate Excel document and I'll show you.
Okay.
Um,
But really, the work you're doing
where
is well, and you even see how it's
YouTube.
now helping others, but you're
Oh, I hope so. Yeah,
all the effort, all the pain that you're going through is going to be strategically used. Very much so.
I
Oh, look at
hope so. Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, this is it kind of shrunk. Let me see if I can. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yeah. So I put from 0 to 1, 1965, and then I actually, when I started
Okay.
school, I put
That's good.
kindergarten and the years, et
Sure.
cetera, et cetera. But yeah, this I don't have dots, and I thought, the one that you showed was cool because you could connect things, like we started wetting the bed,
But this
and
is when the different parts were created.
yeah, yeah, but I don't have, I started wetting the bed
But
here.
this is another chart that I think is essential.
But yeah, this goes all the way to my 60th year. there's cook and video and plant and
Okay,
organ
see,
and
this is a
COVID.
new try. I've thought about recommending this, and you did it. So this,
Yeah, see, I wish I could overlay the chart,
I'd recommend
showing the up and
just do it by
down.
hand then.
Yeah, well, I'll show you. I
Not
actually
just,
have
but
it.
really that'll be so invaluable.
Oh,
You, oh, here, okay, here might be
oh,
an idea.
here it is. See, I put all the parts,
Oh,
their
there we go.
age and their impact, and then I
Okay,
make the graph.
now ready? If you could
So
take, if you could
this
take,
and overlay it on that.
okay, there you go. And if you could take the just do the same a duplicate of each part's little picture
Oh, and put it in there. Yeah.
and put it right there, that would be phenomenal.
All right. Well, yeah. So I've noticed through my life, my
Oh,
life
and
has
then what
gotten
you could do is
better.
you could link it. I mean, you can have an active document where somebody clicks on and there's the profile. And then also the groupings. There's so much then that, but to be able to see each
Yeah.
part's little picture and then go to the chart, there's such flow to that
Oh,
thing.
yes. If I could merge them somehow. Oh my God, I've done like 3 or 4 tutorials on graphs in Excel, and I
Okay, let
cannot
me add one
figure out
more. Okay, you ready?
how to
Oh, this is
do
good.
it.
And then to do that kind of that 3 or 4 dimensional one, where now it's
Yeah.
kind of in terms of depth, who's deeper and who and
Yeah, these are,
I don't know. This could be really talk about processing and helping you work. You
yeah,
know,
but here, this is what really struck me when I was looking at this.
and look at
It's,
the earthquake-like effect.
well, and yeah, look at all of this, my whole 7th year. That was when all the killers were created. Um, you
Yeah.
know, just how often I was made to go to the absolute worst possible scenario and how many times.
And now, what
Yeah,
just even from
and
look at a glance, look at where zero is. It might be interesting to maybe draw a line and highlight it so that zero, the baseline stands out a little bit.
oh yeah, that line, I don't know if I can figure that out, but
As a matter of fact, go up to double click it. I'll show you how to do it because this will be sort of interesting for you.
double click.
I'm sorry, double click the line back where zero is, baseline. Oh, do those stand out? Try the one, I'm sorry, here I'm pointing up to the top. Maybe it'll highlight it for you.
Oh, up here you mean?
Okay, go to the one, the other. Okay, that's good too. Go to the one to
See
the
how
left.
it doesn't put the proper age? It puts
Go to
the
do the one
line.
to the left. Highlight the one to the left.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Okay, but see how it's more bold, the
Yeah.
baseline?
Oh yeah. See
Okay,
how this is a line item when it should be an age.
yeah, but anyways, go do your original, but look at how baseline stands out. And the reason I'm recommending
Oh
that,
yeah.
go
Yeah.
back to your chart, the way you had it is,
Okay. Think that one.
okay,
No.
so if you have baselines stand out, what'll happen is, and the benefit of this is you're able to see on an intuitive feeling level.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that's a stark one as well. Um, the one thing that's true about this chart is there's no happy medium, and therefore it's all these extremes, which gives the
Oh
sense,
yeah.
right? It
Total
gives the
roller
sense of
coaster.
as you
Yeah.
move to adulthood, then the feeling is that it's only a matter of time. Two things are true. Actually, three things. The sense of Murphy's Law, right? No
Yeah.
matter what you want, the opposite's going to happen. And then it's only a matter of time till the worst case scenario or until your success gets snatched away. And no
Hmm.
matter what you want, the opposite's going to happen.
Well, and
So it's
that's what I think
foreboding.
Angie's going through right now with this
That's right.
guy she's dating. Is
And
she
so
feels
what'll
like,
happen, as a matter of fact, show me the on the far right now where you are, right?
what do you mean here?
Yeah, take the little slider. Let's go to the current day or the last.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, this is
Now, so this is what's so interesting. So look at now
and
how
this is all
much
Chris right here. All this shit is from Chris. Imagine if he didn't do those things, my life would be so much
there we go.
smoother.
But what
You
you
know?
may find, Diana, so what's so interesting, and that matters. Now, but what sometimes or almost oftentimes happens is this is the current over on the right, this is you, this is here, this is now. But
Yeah.
as if you weren't doing the work you're doing therapeutically, then what
Oh,
would
yeah.
happen is all the little ones would not believe that this is real or could be sustained, that it's only a matter of time. So they would self-sabotage because the longer you have success, the greater
Oh,
the
right, right,
time.
right. The more
So now you
likely
can
that
help
something
have
bad.
that discussion with yourself to know that no, this is not a fluke. This could be the beginning of life.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what's so powerful that in the present day, so for instance, you're wanting to do your channels, you guys are getting prepared for all that. This whole scenario, meaning your life, you can see how
Yeah.
parts then um, might drive you, as it were, to or anybody else. So, what an invaluable thing to help normalize self-defeating behaviors, self-sabotaging behaviors, where it then shows someone they're not crazy. For instance, this is Chris, that he does stupid things.
Yeah.
So he drinks and self-sabotages
Oh,
because he
yeah.
doesn't want to look at the stuff.
Right. Yeah, I know. He just won't. He just keeps himself so preoccupied and busy with work and beer that he can't get out of it. I'm like, I don't know.
So,
He's better than he was 20 years ago, so he is doing something, but and this, I was thinking this right here is COVID. I was alone with Chris's mom in Oregon and I was really scared. But
but think about so
yeah.
what jumps out for me as I'm looking at that, as you just said that, if you ask the average, so it shows you your pain tolerance level, tolerance for intrapsychic pain. You ask people during COVID what number they would give that, and that's almost the worst thing they've ever
Oh
been
my
through.
God, they'd be at
Look at you, that's a
9%.
-1 for you.
It was a one. I almost gave it a 0, but I was like,
Right?
no, I
But
was
isn't
pretty
it interesting?
scared.
That shows you how strong you are on the inside. Because if you were to ask the average person on a scale of 1 to 10 or -1, -10, what would you put COVID at?
I know, I
For
know.
you, it's like, well, it's
It was
kind
a
of
blip.
minor irritation. That's
I know.
funny.
Well, and I was thinking too about there was a couple of other parts that I was looking at thinking, well, that wasn't so bad. I think it was Janet and Slick. I had given them a -5. And I redid them and they're at like -2 now. Because I'm like, all that was physical exertion and mind fucking. It wasn't all that physical torture and stuff. So I think Janet and Slick wound up here, but these were, all the tortures and the killing and the whatever. I thought, well, that physical exertion wasn't really that bad. It was just exercise that I didn't like. So I moved him from 5s to 2s the other day.
And even as you're describing this, Diana, it's phenomenal because you're really getting in touch with right brain
Well, yeah,
behavior.
and what, one
Great. It's
part
giving you
my
perspective.
yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, because I kept thinking, well, I don't want to invalidate their experience. And they're like, no, when I really think about it, it wasn't that bad. It's like,
But
okay.
isn't it good for every part because it validates and it forces them to see, okay, wait a second. It's in
Yeah,
the
it's
negative.
not that big of a
It's in the
deal.
negative.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's phenomenal that you were able to put successively -10s because the average
Well, and the
person,
funny thing is, yeah, is right here is when mom divorced dad. And notice these negatives don't go that low
there
anymore.
we go. Okay,
You know what I mean?
that's
All that is eliminated and the graph moves in this direction, in an
there we
upward
go.
direction, is that my life has gotten better.
There we go.
But yeah, the first 10 years were the worst. It was awful. It's kind of what I would think about with Chris was the first 6 years of our marriage was awful. So the rest of it will be better. We've
You know,
already
and
gone
also,
through the bad part, you know?
right? And also, as I'm looking at this, so it's great because even though I know it's you, so let's you'll hear my little thought process. Let's say this wasn't you, knowing the kind of stuff that you went through. And I think I referenced it when I was talking to doing that last video. If you go back to the chart for a moment, the
Yeah.
graph wise, okay, what I can be guaranteed of this. So let's say this isn't you. You and I are analyzing. Once you do your podcast, somebody sends this into you. So let's say you and I are kind of analyzing it. What I would be able to guarantee that person is this, that those highs are either a fluke or an exception, but given the level of heinous stuff that your dad orchestrated,
Oh my
then
God.
either those positives were beyond his control
Yeah. Yeah.
or
'Cause
it was a
that's,
setup,
yeah.
right? Because it was going to be the facade for what then was going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They would make these awesome experience like that one you showed on Emma's show was they went to Disneyland
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was
and
thinking.
then whatever happened after that, I forget what it was, but
Right.
yeah.
So the child thinks, oh, good, I get to go to Disneyland
I'm safe. It's gonna be
there,
fun.
right? Or
Yeah.
going to have a fun time, or meaning the parents, they don't do anything nice for a reason. I mean,
Uh-huh.
just to do it
Yeah.
nice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something, there's something to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or they're going to allow the kid to have even that memento or something so that they can take the memento away. They can, it's
Well,
just
yeah, that was like, this is Teddy Bear right here. She went to school and they told their teachers were just gushing on her, telling her what a good girl and how awesome she is and all that. And so she's skipping home singing a song, feeling like the best little girl in the world. And bam, dad had to punish that,
well,
and
and that's interesting. I bring up a scenario about school for that kid because oftentimes that is compared to what's going on, there's a safe,
school is like an escape from
there you
it.
go.
Yeah,
There you go.
totally. Total escape. That was, I realized that that's what these parts are. This is Claire and Dream and Smarty Pants and these were the gifts from God right here. So
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
wasn't absent. He was there. He gave me a little bit of joy in
So
the
to
midst
have
of
different
love.
versions of this would be so phenomenal, Diana, but to have one so
I
the
know.
outsider, as you're doing your chart, your parts chart and the groupings,
Mhm.
I'd recommend have one version where you then have the corresponding
The picture, the part
picture.
name.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then visually, if somebody's looking at this and they're looking at then it's really a good flow. It's like, oh,
Yeah, I just can't figure out how to change this to an age because this should all say 77777, and 60 over here, but these are the line items.
or
And then I
maybe you
thought,
just superimpose another text box.
oh, I didn't even think of doing that.
Like right now, you could go up and do insert over on the left by the home page,
Yeah, insert.
right? And then over to the right
Where's the
text box.
text
Oh,
box?
further over. Sorry, go right over left.
There
Sorry.
it is.
There we
Okay.
go. Right. And just overlay a text box. That's all I ever use is text box. Right. And
All right. Is that going to cover? I guess I
oh, it
could
will.
send
So
that,
right in, and then you'll go up and you're going to make
add the age.
yeah,
Okay.
you'll be able to make the border and the background disappear so it'll look floating.
Okay. So what?
Go
Send.
ahead and write anything in there that you want, and you can change the font to match whatever size.
Okay. I
Okay,
never
now
did that.
double click the box again now.
Okay. Oh, you mean to change the text? Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Now go up. I'm sorry, you can't even see where I'm pointing on the screen. Double click it again.
Okay.
Okay, now if you go straight up under the word formula and data, you're going to see the two highlighted boxes. Now go down. Oh, sorry. Now, go back to home.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. I was just, now
That's
you're
all
going to see
right.
the paint can and the A that have the highlighted. There you go. Now over
Oh,
each of those, go down and click. See, it should say no
no
fill.
fill.
Okay,
Right.
do that.
Okay.
And then also the other one that has the, there you go, same thing. And it should have,
A white. Yeah. But see, then I see the same thing still.
now you can click and click and then, so highlight that box again, double click it.
Yeah, it's
Now
highlighted.
go to the edge of that box and now you can move it up.
Oh, right, right. Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. What did I do there?
Unless it disappeared on you.
Well, I think because it's clear and I can't see it. Oh,
You
wait.
should be able to pull, okay, it's highlighted, or you could
There
pull
we
it
go.
down.
Okay.
There you go, there you go. Wherever the
Okay.
numbers went.
All right. I wonder if I could just
Oh,
insert it.
you know what you did? Okay, the font, I think you turned it, no, I think,
Yeah, the font. Okay, well, I know how to
but
do that.
anyway, there you go. So you can just keep layering whatever you want in there.
Okay. All right, I'll do
And then you
that.
either put in the foreground or the background, depending.
Yeah, yeah, I
There
learned
we
how
go.
to do
There we
that
go.
too.
There we
Okay,
go.
I just only thought you could do it on PowerPoint. I didn't realize you could do it on here.
Yeah.
See, the thing I didn't use a Word document doing this stuff was because I couldn't place the item where I wanted on the page. I had to hit the space bar in order to move it.
Yeah, with all the charts I do, it's all just text box. So
Yeah, but you use Excel
and then you no, I
instead
actually
of
just use Word. And then
really.
you double click the box and you can just move it after you fill in the box of whatever shape or
All
number or
right,
whatever.
cool. Okay.
And then you can shrink it and then you can then it's really floating.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's so when for instance the
See,
chart that
I
I
couldn't get
made,
it to do that on Word. I couldn't get it to move around.
yeah,
It would
so the
only
chart that
move if
I
I hit
made
the,
as a sample for Emma's program, it was simply a text box, and then I went in and did under shapes,
yeah.
just did a circle, and then I can move it wherever I want. I can
Okay,
position.
I'll try it again because I was trying it and I was kept getting stuck. It wouldn't move for
Yeah,
me.
so text boxes are my friend. That's all I just ever, right?
No,
Because then you can
that's
make,
what the way it is for the PowerPoint for
right,
me.
you can make
Yeah.
the border disappear, and then the background you can make it clear so it
Yeah,
looks
yeah, yeah. All
okay.
right,
Excellent,
cool.
excellent work. Um, can I ask, going back to your chart now, there were a couple of parts on there.
Oh, you mean the
And that one's excellent
yeah,
too. See, I had been thinking about recommending
this
that. You
one?
developed it, so you're ahead of the curve here. This is okay. Now, Michael is there. There are a couple new ones. So Michael is over on the there you go.
Well, it's
And
not new for me, but yeah, it's new for you.
oh, sorry about okay. So I'm just
That's
catching up
okay.
here. Now, is Michael who Lucifer was, who became Lucy, or what?
No, Michael was the part inside of me that fought against being drowned. He's the righteous indignation.
Wow.
And he's very present in my adult life as well with Chris. I just have a lot of
Okay.
righteous
Perfect.
indignation.
And
Um,
so where did Lucifer go? And
oh,
then
Lucifer's down on this page because
and
this
is
is where all the killing happened.
okay. Oh,
So
Lucifer's over
he's,
there. Now, is Lucy,
yeah,
and this just, I'm just trying to get up to speed. Still going by Lucifer or Lucy? I'm just
Lucifer,
defining.
yeah, because it's for me, I still see him as just the entity, the evil entity that God cast to earth,
Yeah. But
making all this happen.
okay. But is Lucifer a part, or did you change? You now have a part.
No, Lucifer, well, I guess he's a part. I don't know. He
Because
was,
that'll be important, just like Fatty is now Felicity.
yeah, yeah, I should probably change his name.
Well, but right, that's for you to work through and get a sense of.
Yeah.
Because the only reason if Lucifer is a part, here's just something to ponder. Just as all of a sudden you sense that to
Oh, I forgot to tell you about
allow
things.
Fatty to become Felicity, it's sort of that identity change. It's,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't have to be stuck in that old way
Yeah.
of
I
being.
woke
So
up
that's the only reason I'm bringing that up.
last night because Felicity changed her name 2 days ago. Last night, as I was going to bed, frickin' Frack want new names. So
Okay.
one, he says he wants to be Finnegan, and the other one wants to be Jonathan. I was like, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
it-
So it's like they're all like, right on. I don't have to be that dude anymore. And I'm like, no, you
okay,
can be
perfect.
whoever you
Okay,
want.
that's the same concept. Now, here's just kind of, I'm going intuitively with this. And this, it makes sense of, think about
Gotta
how deep
change this
the
too.
pain and the trauma is. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
always with every part by degree, or not with every, but the vast majority of parts are going to have, in order to deal with the trauma, it's that trauma bonding, but that's really the Stockholm syndrome, right? It's staying an inch away from the truth,
Yeah.
but it's still holding on to the knapsack. Okay, there we go. So
Oh, right.
it
And
may
so
be
changing
that
their identity, they're giving away the knapsack.
there, okay, that's right. So until I can risk believing, but then I experience the pain, but the only way I can give back the knapsack is to see that they were wrong. Therefore, if they gave, here it is, if they gave me an identity, then
Yeah.
for me to maintain that means I'm not, this sounds funny, right? I'm not my true authentic self. So I'm
Right.
giving
Right.
that back. They can have that name. Here's the name that I'm choosing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it may be that over time, if that is a part, that may be one of your toughest battles in this sense, for that part is going to have, that is going to be almost, this is not the right way of putting it, but I'm just going to say it. It may be that Lucifer is your deepest and last holdout.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it'll just take that time of dialoguing, of processing, because if he's Lucifer, meaning he has the name, he has such rage, meaning that's, once he breaks through exactly as you've been experiencing, um, so that metamorphosis, which happens almost instantaneously through venting,
It
it's
does.
it's going to
Yeah.
have to be that very subtle but very intentional. Only the truth is going to be able to, where he can then almost like, there you were being harmed by your dad, and your two sisters are on the other side of that veil. So there's that part of that curtain. There's that part that has to start out being angry with her, because only by being angry with her and letting the stuff come out will that shift take place, ultimately of finding out who put that knapsack, who put me in that position to begin with.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
for Lucifer, that may happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it may be, as long as Lucifer retains that identity, he's still tapping into, he's still connected to the perps.
Yeah. Okay. I guess for me, it's like I still want to think that this is not a part, that this is
Okay, there you go. That's perfect then, right?
but
Then
I
you keep
made
that.
it apart. He's, like, here's the thing. Sometimes when I'll go to Lowe's to buy a plant,
Yeah,
I like the plant, but I don't like the pot that it's in.
yeah,
So I'll find one that I like and I'll trade it. And
yeah,
I usually try to make sure it's the same price because I don't want to steal. But every once in a while, I'll have this thing, this part in my head, which is Elizabeth says, oh, screw it. Find one that's cheaper and trade it out and spend less on it. And that's really stealing. And that happened to me once a couple months ago. I went to Lowe's and switched a pot out and it was cheaper. And I started walking towards the checkout. And then, like, the good guy in me says, no, that's stealing. Don't you dare get back there and switch it back. And so I did.
yeah.
I did the right thing. And I went to the checkout and I bought it. Now, at Lowe's, if you're a veteran, you get a 10% discount.
That's right. That's right.
Well, because I had gone through wanting to steal and then not stealing, I forgot to get my discount. It was like God saying, "This is your punishment for wanting to
That's fine.
steal."
Okay. Okay.
So,
Um,
so yeah, this is the perp in me, I guess.
okay. Now, here's I'm becoming a little more convinced. So again, just kind of allow this to percolate, and I
Okay.
don't have to, right? It's not one of those things that I don't want to tell you, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. But because you have the profile, then it's clear that this is a part.
Yeah, yeah.
So now again, you keep anybody the way they're supposed to be, all that. But given the degree and the extent of what you guys went through in terms of satanic, you were on the receiving end of horrific satanic abuse, then for that part to retain the name Lucifer may stop ultimately being able to give the knapsacks back. So it may prevent
I
it may,
didn't understand that. It's
okay.
like Lucifer is blanking me out.
Okay, well, that's a good sign though.
Yeah,
Okay, this
okay.
is really good, because that means he's listening. So something for him to ponder, which is simply this, right? We're not going to sit there and say that those people were bad. We're not going to, right? We're not going to go there. Now the question is this, though. Is what they did, was it right or was it wrong? Was it right of them to force Lucifer to do what he had to do, or she had to do, or I mean, was it right? Was that fair of them? And so, if that part keeps the name Lucifer, there's no more of a name, right? Than something that will keep them connected. So that's kind of a heart-to-heart connection on an understandable way. It's really kind of identifying with the aggressor. And so it may be that this is
This is
one to
the
keep,
perp that wants to live within me that I deny.
right? But now there you go. But it's interesting how you call it a perp, right? And not faulting you. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's in that nomenclature. It's in the
Yeah. This is a bad
phraseology.
guy. Yeah.
But is he really a bad guy, or is he really just angry for having been told what to
He
do?
had to do this,
Okay,
forced
now
to
you're getting
be
closer.
evil.
Okay, there. And
Yeah.
what
Forced
I
to
would
be
say is
evil.
this. Okay, this
Yeah.
will be an interesting thought. Is it
Oh,
that he's Lucifer, or, okay, this is great. Ready? Or he's mad as hell and he ain't going to take it anymore.
okay. Okay.
So now the question is this. Oh, here's a good one. Is it that Lucifer has chose his name, or here's an interesting thought for him to think through, or in a way, did somebody
Make him that way.
or trick him, and therefore, though he's his own person or she, right? It depends. Is it that this was freely chosen, or in a way, were they coerced into taking that name?
Yeah. Huh.
And therefore, is it really them acting with their own autonomy to say, this is who I am? Or is that going to hinder them in a way? Is that sort of succumbing to what they wanted? Very
Yeah.
subtle, right? But that's worth pondering, because ultimately, only the truth is going to set everybody free. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
what each part ultimately wants is to be able to have their own voice. And the question is, by
I
retaining the
don't
name,
want to recognize that this is a part of me. I don't like looking at it even.
okay, so this is where this will be good, because um, here's my take on this: that
Keep
Lucifer
keep
is a
seeing this face right here, two eyeballs. in a mouth.
Oh yeah, no, there's a whole lot about this. But the thing for me is if this is a part, and the more you're describing, especially when all of a sudden you start to go blank, so that tells me we
Oh
have a
yeah, I keep going blank.
okay. So
Yeah.
we have a part that part, I guess all I want to ask that part is this. I absolutely understand. I can only imagine why you're mad as hell ain't going to take it anymore. Now the question is, who are you mad at? Now, of course, well, they didn't do it right. If these little parts had just gotten their act together, I wouldn't have, there may be some of that, but still the question is this, should you have even be ever have been put in the position in the first place?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
now that's where that mad as hell ain't gonna take it anymore. And now the question is this,
Well, and
what
I feel
name?
like it's tied up with Michael with that righteous
Okay,
indignation.
there you go. So what
No.
my suggestion with Lucifer is this. If Lucifer found out that behind the scenes,
Ah,
those bad those bad guys were bad people were sort of snickering at, look, he's taken the name Lucifer. Now the question is, if given his or her, if given his preference, what name really suits him?
well,
What
I'm
name would he
sitting
want?
here realizing that this is the one that when I'm working on TED, inventing,
Yep.
that this is the one that I wrap the thing around the neck and stand on it and pull it, and I
Oh,
just
oh yeah.
howl, and the it's like righteous indignation. Michael's doing it to be right,
Yep.
but this guy does it
It's
to
rage. It's rage.
fulfill the nasty, awful thing that he's got to do. I have to strangle somebody to death. Are you fucking kidding me?
Okay. Okay.
Arr,
Okay.
you know?
But as you're saying, are you fucking kidding me? And you're strangling. Who are you envisioning strangling?
Well, it's the rage that's with inside Joker and the rage
Okay,
that's
there.
inside
So
of
how about this? How
Dunker.
about how about a new name called Rage?
Oh, yeah, okay. But yeah, it's because to do that, to strangle someone, you have to get so mad that every cell in your body will not stop doing that deed until that person's done. Because if you relax, they could maybe still live. They
There,
could
there you
maybe
go.
get away. They
There you
could
go.
maybe hit you. So you have to be so mad that nothing can stop you.
There you
Yeah.
go. But again, you may want to wait until you get confirmation inside
Oh, right. Okay.
what
Yeah.
you're because again, the only thing comes to my mind, and so Lucifer, that sounds fun, right? But Lucifer will want to hear this. Okay. The
Oh,
goal
I'm
is
getting
ultimately,
goosebumps.
right? So the goal is ultimately this, that for each part to be able to have a choice, right? You'll know the truth, truth is such free to choose, free to finally have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So free, really free. Okay. All the perps, all their goal, I mean, not simplistic, meaning you take it at the sum total of every perp's goal is to render a part
Help.
having no choice and helpless.
Yeah.
Okay. So the breaking free from all of that comes from taking back your personal power, taking back your giving away the knapsack. It happens simultaneously. As I beat that Ted, or as I beat Ted, with each beat, I'm giving back a knapsack. I'm taking back my personal power.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
question is this: with Lucifer,
It's like you have to embrace this awful, terrible, horrible evil to perform this task that you're made to perform. It's
okay, and
like
the operative word is
embracing,
made. That's right. And so the question is
yeah.
this: if Lucifer found out that behind the scenes the perps are laughing at the fact that Lucifer would still retain the name that they wanted him to keep.
Yeah, yeah.
Truly free,
Call forth Lucifer. That's what they would say.
right? And so
Call
they're
forth
making
Lucifer.
somebody do something. So the question is, do you really want that name anymore? Was that of
Oh,
your
wow.
choosing?
No, no. They would
But
say, call
honoring the
forth
rage, because the
Lucifer.
rage is what's going to set you free. So that's where Lucifer just needs to think through. Did he choose that name, or did they choose it for him, or is he getting it without knowing it? Is he playing into their hands where they're snickering at him, that they think he's stupid and can't figure out the fact that he's retaining the name they made him call on?
Right. Okay.
So that's
Oh.
just kind of allow that, because you don't want to change anybody's name if it's not authentic. So
Right. Yeah.
you'll
For
know.
some reason, the word he likes the name Lance. Lance.
Lance. Okay,
Yeah.
why?
Isn't
Yeah, that
Lance
I
like
wouldn't have thought Lance. Oh, well, do that again.
isn't Lance like when you have a sword and you cut through with a lance?
Oh, okay, okay.
I don't know. I don't know
But
what
you may
Lance
want to give that
means.
some time, almost like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
If
Well,
he
Fatty
wants
took
to,
a few days, so
yeah,
yeah.
if he wants to change it, then you change it. So I'm just thinking, because I'm on the outside, easy for me, right? But kind of as a coach or whatever, on the outside looking in,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for this with any part. I'm looking to help empower them so they can be able to choose to
I don't want to
fulfill,
forget it.
right? To fulfill their own, meaning the one thing that all the perps do is they strip autonomy. And so you want to be able to walk out of that POW camp. You're now your own person. And so Lance has the intensity and the strength. So now, is it
This is the one who's got the balls.
there?
Hollers at Chris.
There.
Ah,
Okay. Now, so is he choosing the name Lucifer, or is it still
it's from the perps. Yeah, because they
right?
would say,
Is it still
when they were
just an inch
training me,
away
they would
from being able
say,
to finally be free and choose?
yeah,
So
yeah,
he can be mad as hell, he ain't going to take it anymore. We don't want to touch it. That's your power, but is it still 1 ounce of, without knowing it, playing into their hands where
mhm,
they
mhm.
still, by degree, are calling the shots? So that's
Yeah,
really, what
yeah,
name would he choose? So he's mad as hell. Now the question is, who's mad as hell?
yeah,
His
yeah,
own choosing of a name. What name does he want? If he wants Lucifer, that's fine. But part of me is thinking, you know what? I can see the perps pulling a fast
yeah.
one on
That
him.
was that was when they were training me to strangle a human.
Yeah.
And they were like, you've got to be so angry. You call forth Satan to come express himself through you, kind of idea.
Yeah. But in reality, it was Lance or whoever.
And it
So
was me.
what
It was my split to
there you
be
go.
able to do
So
it.
it's
Yeah.
honoring that intensity. Now you're going to turn the intensity back on them. So the hunter became the hunted.
Yeah. Yeah.
They created Frankenstein's monster, meaning now you've got all this intensity. It's beautiful. You have to have that intensity. Half the book of Psalms is that intensity. Now the question is this: what name do you want that
Yeah.
matches that's what kind of
That part.
symbiotic type of thing?
Yeah.
So if it's Lucifer, fine. But if
This is
they,
the one that confronts Chris
okay, there.
and
But if
and
if
will
they
stand
if
him
they gave
down.
the hint that it's Lucifer, part of me would want Lance or Lucifer to think through, okay, but do you want that name? Meaning,
No,
or is it
no,
that you're
no,
still
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
right?
but I'm just starting to realize who and when he was born and how
So
that
the intensity
happened.
is perfect. We just need to, right, make sure that it's honored. And you need that intensity. You have to be mad as hell. You ain't going to take it anymore.
Well,
Now the
yeah,
question is,
that's what made Chris.
what name fits you, right?
Yeah,
Where you
yeah.
can finally give your own name
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
rather than them as you say, I
Yeah,
really like the term
no.
mindfuck, right? Where they
I've
did
already
something.
decided. Yeah, he's
Okay,
lame.
but again, it just needs to be yours.
Yeah, yeah. All right, awesome.
And
Okay.
now you can even change, right? And that'll be another thing. Does Lance want that picture or does he want another? It just,
That's what
right?
I was just thinking too.
It's
I've
all
got to
that
change
freedom.
the
And that's really
picture.
the key. It's
Yeah.
it's being authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever picture fits, that's what you want to go with.
Okay, so it's not, yeah, this is the image that
Let
they
it
taught
percolate.
me to see, not,
Let Lance see if he even if that name is resonating with him, meaning it's like, yeah, no, that's who I am. And then
yeah, yeah.
he'll lead you to the right picture. So it'll happen. It'll happen.
Right, right,
Maybe
right.
do
See,
another
I
venting
always
session
thought
with
that
him.
that rage came from Trip, but
Ab- Well, they
no,
may have.
Trip was accessing Lance.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Makes sense. It makes sense. And Trip has his own rage.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
that too. Yeah.
There you go. There you
But
go.
where's Fatty? Yeah, I've got to change Fatty's picture too. But yeah, so far we got four parts that changed their names then.
But
Wow.
again, allow and it'll come to you as you're venting. So let Lance come
Yeah.
out and maybe what he can do because it'll be unlocking something in him and it may start out with saying how dare you, right? And then you're going to continue to,
Yeah.
well, you've been doing venting beautifully, but it
Yeah.
may be that there you go. So it'll be in that intensity of the venting that you will really get a sense of what is Lucifer. If it's Lance, he'll really come into his own name. Then you and he will be persuaded, and then you'll have the sense of what picture will go
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, Jonathan in the Bible is a badass.
Is he really?
Oh, you ought to read what he was able to do.
Oh wow.
He
No,
was
I have no
Saul's
idea.
son. So Jonathan's father was a psychopath. But Jonathan and David were best friends, and Jonathan took on an entire garrison by himself.
Wow. Okay.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the decapitating
yeah,
guy.
oh yeah. He would need to know how to do that to take on an entire garrison.
Yeah, and this,
And David, by the way, decapitated Goliath.
oh wow. Okay.
That's exactly that picture that you were holding. That
This
picture.
one, yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
David did to Goliath. Said, David and Goliath. He hits him with a stone. Um, Goliath goes down, and without hesitation, because David knew how to finish off the deal, he chops off the head and holds the head up. So exactly like that of King Saul,
Oh
and all the
wow.
Philistines run away.
Okay.
So that's a perfect name for him. That
Oh
right because
yeah.
Jonathan and David were soulmates. They were best friends, but they knew that Saul was a psychopath, and that David, who had lived in the palace for a while,
Uh-huh.
Saul was so jealous that Saul was going to try to kill David, so David finally had to leave.
Wow.
And there's a parting scene, as it were, in scripture where it says they embraced, they were crying because they were battle buddies.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's exactly what David did, and Jonathan was a no nonsense guy. So that because David held up Goliath's head because they were kindred spirit. They were
Right. Yeah.
brothers, right? They were a band
Yeah.
of brothers. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. The Finnegan, I feel like this guy is Irish. I don't know why.
Maybe, right? I'm thinking,
Going
what
that.
is Braveheart?
Oh, huh. Yeah.
Wasn't he? Yeah, or is that Scottish? I guess that's Scottish, but yeah, yeah.
Gosh, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
There you go.
All right, cool. Well, all right.
So
So,
well, I'll be very interested, Diana, in if, and you'll know. So do for the vending today.
so she needs a new
As a matter of fact,
picture.
tap into each, yeah, Felicity, but with Fatty, because Fatty and then but Felicity, yeah, right?
Yeah,
Felicity, um, what's going to help her heal is having Lance, if that's the name that's going to resonate,
yeah,
and Finnegan and Jonathan all come together and give her and honor that rage. Give her some of their rage and just really be able to tap into that. But as that process, so as venting is going on today, if you're going to be venting today, you'll really solidify then. You'll hear from Lance. You'll hear if that's the name he wants, you'll get a separate picture. It'll really come together through venting today.
Yeah, yeah. All right, wow. Okay.
You know, meaning again, I don't want you changing the name for me. I just really will always
No, no,
sure
he likes
that
that a
every
lot. I think he still likes the picture, but in time,
yeah, whatever,
Patty
right?
doesn't like her picture at all, but
But it's really right. Lance is mad as hell. He ain't going to take it anymore. That's a beautiful intensity. That's all. That's half the book of Psalms. He is an imprecatory prayer incarnate, right? He is.
okay.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
knowing that he has God's heart, God's
yeah.
intensity. So he's
I
going to tap
guess that's how
into what, there it
that's
is.
how I perceive Michael to
There you
be.
go. So with Lucifer, he has a
Maybe this
God-given.
is Gabriel. Oh,
Oh, so
wow.
he has a God-given name for God-given righteous indignation. So that's where let him kind of just, it'll percolate. The name will come to you, and therefore the picture will come as well.
Okay.
And so it's you're doing wow, look, I'm all worked up.
No, that's okay. I up until today, I just sincerely just I didn't ignore him, but
I've seen a picture of
I
special
understand
ops.
him much better now.
I've seen a picture of a special, it was very much it's for the military, but it's a special ops guy coming through flames and smoke.
Oh, I bet Chris would
And
just love
so,
that.
it's a similar thing, but it'll be interesting to see for Lance what resonates and then what picture.
Well,
Because now,
yeah, because this
right?
guy, I'm certain right now, this is the guy that when Chris just pushes me to the fucking edge,
Yep.
this guy is the one that gets Chris to back down.
There
And
you go.
nothing else can do it.
There you go.
Nothing else.
But for his mission now,
Wow.
right? Now it may be that a different picture is going to resonate because now the hunted becomes the hunter. And
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I'd almost like to keep this picture, just take the horns off him.
Okay. Well, and you'll find it, right?
Yeah.
You'll find it as you
Wow.
guys are looking through whatever metamorphosis this picture is going to be.
I
Oh yeah,
kept thinking that Lucifer before was outside of me, the actual real demon character. But
yep.
no, you're right. This is a part that was embraced that absolute utter rage
There we
in
go. That's
order
right.
to be able to kill.
That's
And
right.
it was, yeah,
And
because
so
without
now
that
it's what
rage, you
what
can't do
really
it.
that's right. And now what picture really captures Lance's heart? Because
I
I'll tell you where
guess.
that rage comes from. It's both what you guys were subjected to, but also the flip side of hurt is anger. And look
Yeah.
what he was forced to endure and watch and participate in. So that rage is the heart of a special ops
Wow.
person, quite frankly. Right? That now
I'm just
almost like Rambo kind of thing, right? Where he's
Yeah.
now on a mission, okay, but he's taking so he's going to be able to find his own identity that was stolen from
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
tried to co-opt his identity.
Hmm. And you know what, Chris? There's been many times I asked him, I said, well, how many people do you think you killed when you were in the military? And he said he doesn't know. But because I told him at the time it was 85, now it's 122. But I think that he is realizing that if I, as a girl and as a child, can cope with going through this, that maybe he can too.
That's a good
You
point.
know,
Good
maybe
point.
his
Yes.
body count's lower. I don't know, but I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah. Hmm.
So. I'll tell you, and I'll end with
Because
just as
he
far as
must have had to embrace this as well.
absolutely right, and it's very terrifying. But to know, here's the image that just came to my mind. Lance is in there, the real Lance, and now if that name suits him, and what I want Lance to do is almost like if we could do animation,
Hmm.
because they
Oh,
would
it
be more
changed the
than
picture.
right. They would be more than happy to have Lance keep the image that they put on him.
That's what I was thinking. This is
So the
such
question is, if the
strong.
real Lance could come through, what would we see? Because that trappings is one that I think they would love for him to keep
Yeah, because I was supposed to embrace Satan.
there.
I was supposed to bring Lucifer into me.
Right. But
Allow
God has
Satan
it as
to,
his hand on you. And so
yeah.
really what you are tapping into is your inner strength, which comes
Hmm.
from that righteous rage, which is really an imprecatory prayer embodied, right? As a matter of fact, in Isaiah 59 and Isaiah 63, right? Did I read that one to you? As a matter of fact, let me just Isaiah 63, because those are like back to back. Um, Okay, so ready? In chapter 63 of Isaiah. Who's this that comes from Edom, from the city of Basra, with his clothing stained red? Who is this in royal robes, marching in his great strength? It is I, the Lord, announcing your salvation. So he's rescuing people. It's I, the
Hmm.
Lord, who has the power to save. Why are your clothes so red, as if you've been treading out grapes? This is a beautiful scene, right?
Yeah.
I've been treading the winepress alone. There was no one to help me. In my anger, I have trampled my enemies as if they were grapes. In my fury, I trampled my foes. Their blood has stained my clothes. For the time has come for me to avenge my people, to ransom them from their oppressors. I was amazed or appalled that no one was there to intervene to help the oppressed. So I stepped in to save them with my strong arm. And here it is. My wrath sustained me, and I crushed them. I crushed the nations in my anger, made them stagger and fall to the ground, spilling their blood upon the earth. It's a beautiful scene,
Yeah.
right? In most churches,
Yeah.
pastor called me the apostate. It's like, I honor the scriptures. God
Yeah.
himself
Yeah.
saved those words for a reason. And
Yeah.
so Lance has the heart of God. And
I
that's
think
why,
so. Yeah.
right? And so now the question is, what form fits him? And
Yeah.
if they cause this to be superimposed, almost like with super glue, right? Or
Mhm.
they got sticky stuff. And the question is, does this suit him, or did they suit him up where they secretly would take kind of secret delight in snickering, thinking he can't figure it out himself?
Mhm.
So was this laid upon him?
Well, I was 3 weeks old, so I didn't really know what the hell was going on.
But now with that
Yeah.
anger, the question is what, and you'll feel that as you vent, it's like as the real Lance breaks free from their hold and their control, and how dare they, and you beat the hell out of them. It'll be interesting to see who emerges, what form
Hmm. Hmm.
emerges from that. My own hunch is, right, you're going to be mad as hell. You're going to be even more powerful. But now the visage, the
Hmm.
shape,
Hmm.
we'll find out who the real Lance is. And then he'll find that picture that matches him.
Right. We
Because
need to get rid of the lies and the
there you
spell
go. There you go.
and see
Because
what
look at
the
the picture
truth
that
is.
God says about himself. He's blood splattered.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Okay. Well, you probably gotta get going, I think.
Okay, I'm proud of you. You're doing great work. Look, I'm all
Thank
worked up now. I'm
you.
all excited.
Okay. All right.
So
Okay, good. No, thank you. I would have never thought to even look at that part if you hadn't
he's got
started.
so much of your power. I mean, so many parts to, but you tapped into, you've got really some of your most foundational intensity. You're tapping into it with these guys. And
Okay.
frickin' frack, it's beautiful. It
Okay.
is to see, and that's why when you sent me that video, You ought to see me. You should. I'm always on the edge of my seat. I'm going, get him, get him. You know, I take all this vicarious
Good.
satisfaction seeing it come out.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I think that's what Chris maybe experienced because he didn't watch me, but he heard me.
There we go.
I was just losing it
There we go.
for like 15 minutes.
It's
Anyway,
beautiful. Okay. No, Diane, you're doing such such good work. Okay. When are we talking next? Put those.
Tuesday,
Okay,
9.
Tuesday. Good, good, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if anything comes up between now and then, or, text me or email me or
Sure,
keep,
yeah.
keep them coming over the
Okay,
batch.
I will do.
Mind if I close in prayer?
Of course.
Let me do that. Lord, thank you so much. Lord, thank you for your intensity. What an amazing thing. And it's so sad that so many pastors, they just avoid these passages because they haven't done the work necessary to understand how you feel. Lord, thank you that you have given Diana your heart and you've allowed her to tap in to those parts that were so wounded, so harmed by perpetrators. Lord, thank you for honoring that intensity, and thank you for recording in Scripture where you have that kind of anger, that righteous rage. And so thank you that what Lance had to endure, and he's been there. So Lord, just allow Diana to be able to connect with that intensity and continue to reveal to her what each of these parts are like so that they can have that direct communication. And Lord, continue to work on Chris. Lord, give him no rest. In a way, give him no rest until he comes to terms with himself and his stuff. But also open his eyes and soften his heart so that he can receive healing. And also continue to give Diana wisdom and insight and the sense of how she needs to continue with the boundaries. And thank you for being with her. She goes through this very difficult, this hellish work. Lord, we know that you've called her to this. Her pain is not going to be for nothing, and that you've laid upon her the mantle, just like Elijah and then Elisha, that powerful prophet that you are laying upon the mantle of Alan, that she's going to be able to pick up that baton, and the work that she's doing, Lord, in setting her free, but it will be used strategically to set others free. So thank you that you don't waste any of our pain. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Welcome.
Always
Okay.
beautiful. Thanks.
Okay, well, let me know how venting goes.
I will do. You have a great day, great weekend.
Okay, we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, bye.